Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, it's just me sharing ideas, insights, and best practices for building professional relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, seems to be more often than not now, but occasionally I get on here subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, people who will share their knowledge on how to build relationships, as well as help us understand why we humans interact the way we do. Today on the program, I have Tammy Ebright with me. Tammy is a communication and leadership coach, and she's the founder of Unleash Your Amazing. She's had a long, successful career as a mortgage banker, has helped people grow. She's helped amazing charities, and she's also helped people build referral-based businesses, or she's built referral-based businesses. After the sudden loss of her husband, David, in 2012, she became a solo mom and leaned into massive self-development. She's found a passion for authentic communication and networking and business relationships, learning how to speak and respond to others' behavioral styles. And I really want to welcome you to the program. She's freezing down in Florida, she tells me, 60 degrees. But you are originally from Missouri, the Kansas City area, the western side of Missouri. So welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with you.
Well, share you will. I guess kind of get into your whole story. I mean, you know, mortgage banker, very relationship oriented, right? Charities, very relationship oriented. I guess just kind of go through your story and how you kind of got here, and then let's talk about a lot of the things you work with your clients on.
Well, my story begins.
Okay.
So my mortgage story actually begins. I did finance at a car dealership first and did really well with that, but there's a lot of hours in the car business. So I, shifted and got into mortgages, and I was in a call center first, and then ended up taking some time off and having my son, and got back into it and was recruited to do closing documents. And so process and do closing documents, which was kind of the back end of the mortgage industry, and got a really great baseline for that and built my own company, Ebright Documents. And then when the market crashed in 2008, I decided it was a great time to get out there and build my own mortgage origination business. And so I did. I shifted. So when a lot of people were getting out of the mortgage business, that's when I got in and started to really build a relationship-based production.
Well, I think up until then, I'm old enough to remember that time, and talking to people in 2005, 2006, 2007, talking to them about what percentage of their business was purchase and what mortgage lenders, what percentage was purchase, what was refi, and 95% of it was refi.
Oh, and yeah.
I just knew there was a problem coming, because you're a call center. You're a mini call center when you're doing refi work for the most part, but when you're having to work purchases, 2008, 2009, and there really weren't a lot of those either. You had to be all relationship.
Yeah, it was funny. The person that hired me didn't want to hire me because, again, everybody was getting out of the business. So I really had to bring my A game to talk her into giving me a chance. And some of the things that I did to build my business back then was just getting involved in organizations and building relationships with the people, and then getting involved with things that are important to my target center of influence. So realtor organizations, realtor charities, things like that.
No, I think that's great advice. That's people always ask me what's the number one thing I recommend doing, and volunteer. Find something you're passionate about and volunteer. But I like what you've kind of you were strategic about it and said, okay, I'm going to go where the fish are, right? If I'm going to put my pole in the water, I'm going to go where the fish are, and that's where the fish are or were or are still, I guess. So you've got this mortgage business. It's, obviously you did well with it. At what point did you say, and I'm going to stop practicing what I preach and you start getting paid to preach, I guess, you're helping people become better at networking, building professional relationships. When and how did that all come about?
Well, in 2018, in January 2018, I went and got certified to be a certified referral trainer so that I could lead my own team to help them build their business. I'd started doing monthly events at my branch. I was managing a mortgage branch, and that was in January. And then on February 12th, I got separation papers and lost my job.
Oh, wow.
They decided to pull out of my market. And I was like, wow. And, in January, I had this huge month. And then to lose your job the next month, it was really pretty discouraging, but I shift pretty quickly. And I interviewed 17 different mortgage companies. And
let me clarify here. You interviewed, they didn't interview you, you interviewed them.
Yes. Because when you're a producer and you're doing really well, like, you are the one that is actually in control of your future. You want to make sure that you're bringing your book of business to the best place. And it's so funny. I always say I interviewed them, but it is kind of an interesting way to job hunt, is be the one that is actually looking for the right place for your referral partners, because they put a lot of trust in you, and you want to make sure that their loans are getting closed, that the rates are best, that also you're getting paid for all the time that you're putting in. So it's a big decision to make.
No, I think that's an important distinction, and I think that's something that everybody needs to. I mean, even if you're out there looking for that job, you need to kind of get yourself in that position where you're somewhat sought after, even if you're not a producer. And that's not, you built that. You built that. I don't know how to even put it. Just kind of that image or that confidence that, hey, listen, I've got all this work. Who wants to process it for me? It's really what you were saying.
Yeah, you build your own brand essentially as an individual to be able to show what you bring to the table and how you're different from others. And when you decide to build your business around referrals and you build those relationships, you end up having like two clients that you have to, I don't know, for lack of better words, that you answer to, right? You have your referral partner, and then you also have, the end client that you want to take care of, and making sure that you're taking care of them both is, it's an interesting job, and definitely understanding how people are driven and motivated definitely has been super helpful in that process.
Now, I would imagine that I use the word interesting. I would say challenging at times, because you have a referral partner that wants you to zig, and you have the client that wants you to zag, and it sometimes doesn't work out, I guess. but I mean, I think that's life, right? I mean, we all kind of get stuck between competing interests, if you will. So you're this referral coach. What are some things that, what are some of the things you do? What are some of the things you do with your clients in this referral coaching business? Some insights you can share. I don't want you to give it all away, but certainly I want you to talk about the things you do, and we'll certainly get at, how people can get a hold of you for people out there that are interested.
Well, I help people take a holistic approach to building their business by referral, and by also making sure that they have a really balanced life. Because again, when you have two different clients that you're kind of on with, making sure that you are in a healthy place is pretty important. So the process of working with me always starts with us like figuring out like, what's your plan? Let's get a strategic plan together and understand like who your target is, how you can best engage with them. Like, where are they? Where do you find them? And how do you get involved in those organizations and help them and do this in a way that is really authentic to who you are? And then one of the other things that I bring in, and a tool that I bring in, is the understanding of self. I use scientific-based assessments to help people to understand what their own personal behavior is, and how that can be good with other people, and how it might not be so good at times with other people. And then how are you driven? Like, why do you get out of bed each day? What motivates you? And understanding how sometimes if you're really passionate in one of your motivators, somebody else that's really passionate in that opposite, how you can conflict and how to overcome some of that challenge. Because the number one reason that relationships fall apart is lack of communication. So I'm really about helping you to understand how to best engage with other people while also staying true to yourself.
Gotcha. Can you provide an example? Are you referring to like DISC or Myers-Briggs or one of those?
Mm-hmm. So DISC is one of the sciences. DISC, okay. Driving forces, and then I also do some stuff with emotional intelligence and acumen. Okay. So it's like a whole picture of like who you are at the core.
Right. Can you give an example of how a certain type might struggle with another type, or not even with another type, just in general? I guess for myself, I have a franchised organization. I have franchisees, and early on, I started doing an assessment. I don't remember the name of it. I've since stopped doing it. I'm doing something else in its place. But this assessment told me that one of my early franchisees basically just said, he's really disorganized. In so many words, it came out and said he's really disorganized. And we sat and we reviewed it. He says, oh, yeah, that's me. I'm like, oh, great. And I just, I had to really kind of change how I could never assume with him, he's still with me. I could never assume with him that the T's would be crossed and the I's would be dotted, mm-hmm. Whereas I had other people where that was not the case. You didn't say, hey, they're really organized, but but they just were, and all the paperwork was just fine. Everything was fine. So I don't know if you have an example that you can share from a networking. That's just my example is more just kind of a business operational type thing, but yeah. from a.
So yes, it's interesting. Now it affects my business relationships, but honestly, the way that it's affected me the most is my son, who's now 18, and I've raised him alone for the last 8 years. He's behaviorally my opposite. So where I'm more fast paced and direct, he's more slow paced. And as a parent, like having your child that would come to you and he would be like, while I'm in the middle of working or doing something. And so somebody that's really direct and driven, when they're focused and working, they don't necessarily like to be interrupted. So he knew that instinctively. And so he would come to me and he would just like hem-haw around. And I'd be like, what do you need? You know, come on, I'm busy, I'm working, which is not the most proud parent moment, right?
Yeah, we all, that's me too. I get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what I learned is with him, in order to allow him to really open up to me, I had to shift that. I had to become more patient and ask better questions. So it's interesting. We'll be talking on the phone, and he almost always every day will say, because he's not here with us in Florida right now, but he'll always be the one to ask, you know, how was your day? So with the S, which is his style, behavioral style, starting a conversation with a personal comment or greeting and breaking the ice is really important. Where with the driver, the direct person, like getting to business fast is really important. Right. And those are really two complete opposites that can really clash. And when you think about the S is 36% of our population, that could be a lot of people that we're alienating if we're coming at them too quickly.
I would think from a networking, and I don't study DISC like you study DISC. I would think from a networking perspective, the S could be very successful, more so than the D. And I get this on LinkedIn all the time. Hey, let's connect. I think I could solve all your problems. To me, that's a D, right? It's just like, you don't even know me. People who know me can't solve my problems. How, right? And that just drives me crazy. But the people I have the people that I've developed the best follow-up kind of relationship with, that I've met on LinkedIn, it's been kind of a nurturing sort of, I feel they care about me. I care about them. They care about me. And that's going to go a lot further.
So actually in sales, the S has the potential to win more sales than any of the other styles because of that. The challenge with that is a lot of times they lack confidence. So making sure that you're encouraging them to be the best person and helping them to actually speak up. Because a lot of times in a meeting or something, they're going to get some of the best ideas because they're not verbally vomiting on everybody. They're like just taking all the information in. And so allowing them and making sure that you're asking them a lot of, how do you think this would work questions is really key to help them open up and share, because when they do share, it's huge because they can see things in a way that people that think very directly don't necessarily think about. They take in everything. Very great listeners, very intuitive.
Interesting. I had a conversation with a business owner, successful, but he said I could be much more successful. He's great at relationships. He said, my problem is I don't ask for the sale. I don't ask for the business. And that's kind of what I hear you saying with the S, is that they can have this wonderful relationship, but it's, we're just dating. You haven't asked me to marry you, kind of a thing. It's, and at some point the prospect just kind of like, well, I'm going to go with this D who's got me a proposal, because I just feel good around you, but I don't know how we're going to do business. Is that a fair sort of assessment? Or
It is. So that's why it's important to not just look at the one science, the DISC.
Okay.
Also bring in the motivators. So if you have somebody that has a commanding motivator, so they're actually motivated by taking charge in their own freedom, then they're more likely to ask for the sale and be able to engage with people in that way that they need to in sales. Another motivator for that is really key for sales, like 70% of the top salespeople is resourceful. And so they also have this resourceful where they're driven by a return on the investment of their time, talent, and energy. Then you have like a more formula or the ingredients for a really successful salesperson that is really kind of mild mannered, but has the motivation to ask for the business because they're just driven that way.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think it matters if they're self-employed or working for somebody? And the reason I say that is I have a friend who, he says, when I was working for somebody, it was never really hard for me to ask for the sale because I had big boss looking over my shoulder. But when he became his own person, became self-employed, that he was really answering to himself. And so he became a little more shy about it. I don't know if you've experienced anything along those lines.
I think it definitely takes some different abilities to be self-employed versus working for somebody and understanding exactly what's expected of you. A lot of times your D's and your I's are going to be more big picture thinking to be able to kind of overcome a lot of that struggle with self-employment. Not to say that, the S or the C isn't really good with it too, but having those motivators along with it still is pretty key in order to be able to get out there and ask for the business and do the things that really do make us successful.
Okay. People are listening. How can they help you? How could they help you? How could they get a hold of you?
Well, my website is unleashyouramazing.com. And, they can connect with me there or on LinkedIn. I do offer an initial 30-minute strategy call that is not a sales call. I'm just happy to give you some advice. And then if after the call you feel like you want to go further and work with me, then we can talk about what that looks like at that time.
Do you have group programs? Is mainly individual? Yes, or both? Or
I do both. I have a group mastermind that is starting in January. Referral activation system is my own framework where I help people to build their referral-based business.
Okay, so you do both then.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking, you get out and speak, groups and
I love to speak.
Yeah, nobody does now with COVID. In a better time, do you speak? Yes.
Yeah, and I do some virtual training and things to help with teams. I'm a really good team builder, and using the science to really see where your gap is and where you really need to either your next hire or how to put together, just the best person to fit with you is one of my strengths.
Yeah. No, I can see that being really important. I remember it's been a long time since I've had a job, but working with people and just looking at somebody and saying, wow, they're really different,
Mm-hmm.
And they are, but being too immature to realize that, yeah, they are different. You just need to go with it and figure out how to meet them on their own terms. They're not changing to be me. I'm not changing to be them, but how can we kind of still work together? And I think that's the holy grail of being successful, whether you're working for somebody or working for yourself, to be honest. So
I think it's really important for a culture with companies to really understand how their people think, and so that they can really empower them to be the best that they could be. Because when somebody is coming in it and they're being themselves or being authentic, then they're going to do more for you than they will if they're put into this little box that says, I need you to behave like this way, and it's really not true to who they are.
Well, I really appreciate your time today, everyone. Tammy Ebright, and her website, and I'll put it in the show notes, is unleashyouramazing.com.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.